Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is hashtag No Limits, and I am your host, Shelly Kino. Hashtag No Limits is about people whose society has placed limits upon, but who have busted through those limits. Ophelia says in Hamlet, "We know who we are, but not who we will be." And I believe that to be true, and that there is not a better or more beautiful example than the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. For those who don't know, a very simplified version of what happens is that the caterpillar literally dissolves back into cells. And then, just as it must think that life is over, it reforms into the butterfly. But it isn't finished battling. It has to struggle and fight to get out of the cocoon in order for its wings to be strong enough to take it everywhere it's going to go. And I think that is absolutely amazing, but it can't be easy. But neither is busting through the limits that society places upon a person. And so today I'm going to bring on a guest, and he's going to talk about things from a dad's perspective. And we haven't had a lot of guests that have been able to share what it's like from a dad's perspective. So I'm really pumped to talk to Kirby in just a few minutes. Before we bring him on, though, and I don't know who this we is that I keep referring to. I must have a mouse in my pocket today because it is just me. I guess I mean we as the audience and myself. I just want to remind you to like and subscribe to this channel or to this page on Facebook. Be sure to leave comments. Give us a hashtag live and where you're watching from, or a hashtag replay and where you're watching from. And I think that's it. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring on my guest today. Hey, Kirby, how's it going?
Doing great, Shelly. Thanks for the opportunity to talk this afternoon and excited to have this conversation. So thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned in the intro, I've had a lot of dads come on and share their
Is it me?
experiences. In your own walk, have you noticed that there's not a lot of dads that talk about these things?
Yeah, sorry. I think my Wi-Fi got held up for a second. I'm sorry, Shelly. Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, no, I was just saying that I haven't had a lot of dads on my podcast, and even in the book, when I interviewed the families, it was all of the 9 families. I think there was only 2 dads that got involved with those, and so I was wondering if you have run into that in your own life, that dads just don't talk much about this portion of their life.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. So I think it's, societal pressures, the way that fathers were raised by their fathers, social media, stigmatisms. And I think also a lot of the systems are built when it comes to school and therapies and systems for mothers, and rightly so. And I don't believe fathers, for the most part, not all of them, because I have connected with some wonderful fathers that are very, very involved, but from a neurodivergent community, right? We don't really have the tools or the resources or the approach on how to open up, how to reach across the table, ask for help, and how to talk about our emotions and not feel weak or irrelevant. And so that's one of the big tenets of Got Fortitude is to provide a judgment-free, safe zone for like-minded fathers like myself, raising a neurodivergent child, right? That can be open, that won't feel weak, that can be vulnerable, that can, cry, complain, get the hard things off their chests, and and get better on a daily basis for themselves. Number one, honestly, because as a father raising neurodivergent children, you have to fill your cup some way, and
Right.
we talk about that a lot, right? And also, you can't be running on empty, running and being the leader of your family, or the anchor of your family, if you will. So there's a lot of things that we do to help open up that conversation. Sometimes those conversations are wide open, and fathers are saying, "Hey, Kirby, I'm here to surrender. I need help and support." And sometimes it takes a little bit of peeling back the onion. So I think those conversations need to be met where they're at, and I think we do hopefully a good job of that, opening up our community to all fathers raising different children with disabilities. Excuse me.
Yeah, no, that's I think I would agree with a lot of what you said, that, it does seem like things are designed more for moms and not as much for dads. And so I think why I appreciate so much about what you're doing and how you're going about it. And so I really didn't introduce you. Hey, everybody, this is Kirby, and I'm not going to try to say your last name because I don't want to butcher it. So, Kirby, will you go ahead and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what brought you to me today?
Yeah, Shelly, Sophia, thanks again for the opportunity to be on your podcast. This is great that we're live. Yeah, so my name is Kirby Rabalais. We live in Glenview, Illinois, with my better half and our two young boys. And the reason why Shelly and I connected, she does incredible work in the disability community around IEPs and helping other families, navigate those systems, as mentioned. And the reason why we were together today and got connected is that at Got Fortitude, we started a mission-based organization community for other fathers raising children with disabilities that provides content, tools, resources, and a place to go and coaching and a place to go for fathers to feel seen, to not walk this road alone, and provide, get support, connect with other dads, learn from each other, and get through the muck and mire on a daily basis in the best possible fashion, and help find your clarity, help find your best version of yourself, and to deal with all the ups and downs and the peaks and valleys of raising a neurodivergent child.
And so you talked about where you live and that you're with your better half and your kids. So how old are your kids, and at what point did you realize there's like nothing out there for me as the dad?
Yeah, we have two young boys. Our 5-year-old's neurotypical. He's a lot of fun, red hair. His name's Porter, and person I matches the hair color, and he's nonstop energizing bunny from the time he wakes up to the time he goes to bed, which is great. We don't have any other way. He's a lot of fun. And our 7-year-old Harley is neurodivergent. He was diagnosed early COVID with a rare genetic disorder called Pitt-Hopkins, which causes global developmental delays, nonverbal. And Shelly and your audience, everything we take for granted has been a struggle and a difficulty for Harley. Luckily, he's a very sweet child, and he wouldn't hurt a fly. And he's made great progress through conventional and non-conventional modalities. And it's been, just wonderful helping be his vehicle, right, for prosperity and development and so forth. And he's thriving in first grade, and it's been just a lot of fun to see his progression. And so to answer your question is, are there other dad groups out there? Yeah, absolutely. There's other dad groups out there. And there's some groups like, hey, let's get together and have a cocktail and a beer and just talk about sports and maybe sometimes talk about the hard stuff. And then there's some other groups, right, that are bigger networks that have a lot of dads connected to them. They meet and so forth, and they talk about things and goods and the bads. However, there's no mission-based community that is organized the way that we're organizing and helping out when it comes to, fathers, specifically one-on-one, community, Facebook groups, opportunities to really talk amongst ourselves and really understand what's the goods, the bads, the uglies, and provide personalized approaches to each father, irrespective of background, where they're coming in from, international, wherever they might be. And, we're just getting started, if you will, and scratching the surface of opportunities. But we're also going to get into helping support schools and school districts with these fathers in their school districts, hospitals and hospital systems of early diagnosis. And there's a lot of opportunity to connect with different types of other foundations and so forth to help bring the awareness that, hey, there's an opportunity out here to connect with a mission-based organization to help these fathers, strive and not just survive in survival mode all the time. And, the numbers on a conservative, basis, Shelly, that there's 100 million neurodivergent children in the world, and that's very conservative. So,
Wow.
you're right. Yeah. So think about that. The vast majority of them are probably going through what I went through for a couple of years, right? Victim mentality. Why us? Why me? No support. Who can I talk to? And you build those fences, you build those walls, and that, over time, it builds resentment, that builds frustration, that builds burnout, et cetera. So we're going to change all that over time.
That's fantastic. And so why did you name it Got Fortitude? And I do have it scrolling across the bottom, but for those who are just listening, the website is www.got, the number 4, titude.com. So got 4, the number 4, Got Fortitude.
Mhm. In kind of the origin of the name is like, my wife and I were researching different names and what should the name of the organization be and so forth. And I was like, Fortitude, like that is such like, I think a very applicable and perfect naming convention for the fathers, what they have to do every single day, suffer in silence, but keep on pushing through and showing that fortitude for themselves, their family, their children, everything to get through the difficulties and the challenges and so forth. So I thought, let's have a little play on words, and got
Mhm.
fortitude and really emphasize that and be a one word organization, which I think is really popular now with all the Ubers and so forth, right? Something very kind of catchy,
Right.
if you will. So I wanted to kind
Right.
of align with what's catchy and also make it very easy for people to find us, if you will.
Yeah, it's a great. I mean, I think, the got fortitude is awesome. I thought maybe the 4 was because there were 4 in your family when you started it, but
Great point. Good question. No, it was kind of like just the play on the words, and you're just like, hey, you got fortitude, you can do it, you could be the best version of yourself, irrespective of how difficult things are at home.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. So, I do have your website. So, if at any point you want me to pull that up and we can share that with the audience, I can absolutely do that. But I just be, I mean, if you want me to, just say so, and I'll do that.
Thank you.
You want me to pull it up or no?
Oh, if you like Shelly, whatever direction you want to go, we can pull it up now or
Yeah.
later.
Yeah. It doesn't matter to me. I will pull it up, and then it'll be ready whenever you want to talk about it. But
Okay.
so tell me, what can people do when they go to this website? How does like, see, I see join the inner circle. So like what does that entail?
Sure. When you join the inner circle as a father, you can sign up right away for our bi-monthly newsletter, which talks about mindset shifts, tools, connection, opportunities, part of our story, all kinds of things that come out on a bi-monthly basis. It's all very, very relative and relatable to what we're doing at Got Fortitude. Is all part of the piece. And there's also a Facebook group with a bunch of fathers around the country that are joined in. And I post on a daily basis. We talk about the goods, the bads, the muck and mires, the challenges. We actually have a Facebook or Zoom hangout tonight, if you will. And we're starting to do a bi-monthly cadence Zoom hangout today. We're doing it today for an hour. Anybody out there, it's 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern this evening. Please subscribe to our Facebook group. It's no cost as of right now. There will be a cost, coming up probably next year, but today it's actually absolutely nothing. So that's a great way to get indoctrinated. Again, it's no judgment zone. Everything stays confidential within the group. And it's been a lot of fun getting to know the fathers, and we talk about some deep stuff. We really do. Personally, and the other fathers, we're learning from each other. So not like I have it all figured out, but it's a lot of fun. The website's just really also giving, like you're going right now through Shelly, just a background, who I am. I want it to be authentic as possible, very genuine, everything we're going through. And there's a lot of things we're doing also when it comes to right here, how we can support you. A father advisor sessions. This is when I really work one-on-one fathers. And it's absolutely my favorite thing to do, when it's a kind of a combination of coaching and mentoring and really understanding, hey, what is your North Star? Like what is your absolute, best version of yourself? What does that look like? What does your legacy look like? And let's start reverse engineering steps to get you to that best version of yourself, irrespective, again, how difficult things are at home. And I work daily, or excuse me, weekly or bi-weekly with these fathers. And it's absolutely amazing how we got to start peeling back the onion and providing, tools, tips, tricks, whatever it might be, to kind of start peeling back and start getting some of that, some of that clarity and some of that opportunity to come, again, the best version of yourself, and understanding, hey, I don't believe in grandiose plans, because if you change 20 things at once, you're never going to get there. But let's start building,
Right.
that little momentum, that compounding effect, right? That compounding interest. So week after week, you start getting better. You're feeling better about yourself, whether it might be movement, prayer, meditation, etc. And let's build that into your schedule and help you, deal better and cope better and regulate better with those triggers that come up on a daily basis and so forth. Because we know our, neurodivergent children, they're just wired differently, energetically wise, vibrational wise. And if we can regulate ourselves better, our family will rise, our house will be calmer, and it'll be a much better opportunity for us to be, more settled at home every single day again. And then,
So,
go ahead, Shelly.
well, I just want to pause for a second on that, because as I am thinking, I'm your episode 220, And, I would say maybe 10 episodes have had a dad. So, the other, I'm not going to say all 210 after that were moms because I've had some other businesses and whatnot, but the majority of my guests are moms. And so I have learned a lot about the things that moms go through. And I am a mother myself. My child is not neurodivergent or is not, yeah, not neurodivergent. And so what I have learned, both in talking with lots of moms and being a mom, I'm kind of curious what sort of things are expressed to you by the dads that they think is maybe different or even the same as what moms are feeling and going through and struggling with.
Yeah. One of the, two top three things that we talk about, right? With dads a lot. And this is definitely very applicable for mothers as well, is like, what happens to my child when I'm gone? Like, what are we going to do about it? What's going to happen financially, physically, and so forth. We start talking about, do you have a special needs trust? If you don't, here are some vetted resources. I have on a resource page that I know specifically in either firms I've used or have talked with and worked with and so forth, and collaborations or partnerships. So I think you try to get your financial situation in order first, no doubt about it. At least because if something happens to you tomorrow, at least hey, financially, economically, your child, your daughter or son will at least have the resources to be situated in the right circumstances when you're gone, and that's for your wife as well, right? So that's a big one.
And I'm gonna time out right there because I know that is a huge concern for moms.
Yes, absolutely.
For so many moms that I have spoken to, it is a everyday concern. Is that the same for yourself and some of these other dads that you've spoken to? And can you describe a little bit more of what that does to you mentally as the dad, as usually the provider, financially?
Yeah.
So
no, absolutely. So, kind of peeling it back even further too. I mean, we have laws in place, right? The Disability Act and all this type of stuff to help support and help us out and everything, but they're so convoluted. You have to have specific experienced, a law practice attorney, right? Somebody that knows the system and how to work the system in the best possible way, not taking advantage, right? But understands how to work within those confines and those parameters of how to set up trust and how to make sure monies are associated with trust and not deductions aren't taken because of Social Security and how much they could potentially make one day and how much they could be independent and so forth. And there's so many variables that go into a child that's specific, the 18-year-old threshold and when they're 22 and so forth, and how much money, again, Social Security plays into it, and how insurance plays into it, and healthcare plays into it. So there's so much complication there and convolution that it is really critical to get with an expert that is vetted, that is trusted in the community you live in, and making sure that you have a bulletproof plan in place sooner than later to give you and your spouse at least the know with all that, hey, something happens, then, my child are going to go with my brother and sister, or, whatever it might be. Our child's going to be protected by this facility or this institution. We know them, they trust them, and they're going to have so much X amount of money over the years. So it is absolutely critical because once you're gone, you're gone. But at least you get peace of mind that is already set up. And that's something we've done a couple of years ago where, hey, this is already in place. The trust is in place. And we have, a good team that's going to help us through the process of the legal system as things come up, as he gets older, if you will. Does that answer your question, Jelly?
Yeah, I think so. And so kind of piggybacking on that, when we're talking about special needs trust, I've had families tell me when I have been coaching them or advocating for them in school situations, and I'll say, by the way, on a side note, this doesn't have anything to do with school, but have you thought about a special needs trust? Or, I'll mention guardianship to them or something. Yeah. And many times when I ask them about the special needs trust, oh, we don't have enough money, or we don't have not enough money. That's not what we don't have enough money to worry about putting our things in a trust. And I've tried to explain it's not about what you have right now.
Right.
So do you run into that with dads too, that there's a lot of dads that aren't maybe getting that either?
Not as much. It's more like, oh my goodness. Like either, oh yeah, we're working on it right now, or we need to do that. Like thanks for bringing that up on my radar. Like I kind of forgot about it. It fell off the wayside because you got 1,000 other things you have to do for your neurodivergent
Right.
children, right? So it's like, okay, put it back on your radar. Maybe it doesn't have to be the top priority, but it needs to be done within the next few months just to make sure everything's copacetic. Because it's not so much how much money you make today, but to your point, Shelley, later, but then all the ramifications of Social Security and insurance and how much potentially they can make if your child is independent and working somewhere, and how that impacts everything, right? There's a trust or not, it impacts so much of their livelihood down the road. So it has to be buttoned up in some fashion of some type of legal guardianship or some type of guardian that knows what they're doing. And it's really confusing if it's still confusing to me, even though we've done it. I'm like,
Right.
it's still not black and white to me. I mean, so it is definitely somebody I would definitely recommend getting with an expert. Again, we have some vetted resources on our website. I'm sure, Shelley, you probably have many resources yourself that you can introduce families and fathers to. So yeah, absolutely. Reach out for help. Definitely.
Awesome. Okay, so I had cut you off when you were talking about concerns that dads bring up. So
Oh,
that
sure.
was the first like major one, which is what
Yeah.
happens when I'm not here. So
Yeah.
what are some of the other ones?
Yeah. I think it's just being able to open up and be vulnerable and have that conversation with either your spouse or with work or family and friends. It's difficult. It's if you don't raise a neurodivergent children, it's difficult to relate to sometimes, because family or friends might not know what the questions to ask. They might not,
Right.
they might not know how to help, but they want to help, but it's kind of awkward and so forth. So it's a very difficult thing where you have to shoulder so much of that invisible weight yourself, and you just try
Right.
to, typical father style, right? You just try to, like, white knuckle through it and just push through everything else. You try to fix things, which a
Right.
man does. So it's like, hey, you have a hole in the wall, go get a patch and a nail and nail it in and fix it out. But that's just not the way it is in our lifestyle. So you have to make
Right.
some adjustments and so forth, and adjust the sails, if you will.
Yeah, and thank you. So one of the things, I mean, I know that there are mom support groups out there, and I'm just kind of curious. So you've been doing this for a couple of years, you said. Um, do you tend to find that you have a lot of single dads, married dads, more of one or the other? And if so, which one? Because I know there's a lot of single moms out there.
Mhm.
And so I'm just curious if
Yeah.
there's a lot of single dads too.
You know, there definitely are a few remarried fathers. I'm just trying to think of, kind of like in our community in the Facebook group, we give you a
Right.
focus, a sample size, if you will. Um,
Right.
Definitely, there's some stepfathers,
Oh,
which is
nice.
different dynamic, as you can imagine. There's
Mhm.
remarried fathers. They're married, still fathers on their same, first marriage, which is great. And I'm trying to think if there's any single fathers. I'm sure there is. I'm just gonna blank, but um, majority of the fathers I've been in touch with aren't single, which is a great thing. So they're figuring out a way how to survive and get through the difficulties, which is amazing. So I give them a lot of
Right.
credit. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned stepdads and
Yeah.
that stepfathers are involved
Yeah.
because absolutely, I mean, a stepfather of any child is a different dynamic,
Yeah.
but a stepfather of a child with neurodivergence.
Yeah.
So can you give me, because you mentioned this a few minutes ago, like some tips and tricks, that you guys talk about. So can you share sort of like, I mean, I know we talked about that the biggest fear is what happens when I'm gone, but like, what do you advise the guys, or what do they come to you the most? Do you think, and what tips and tricks do you give them for those biggest concerns
Yeah.
besides the trust?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Number one is just, I think, yeah, developing trust with them, of course, and developing a rapport. Number two is really understanding, hey, like there is no change without challenge. So I challenge all the fathers, not in a rude or, unorthodox way, excuse me. But just say, like, hey, like, let's really get into what is going on in the household. Like, talk to me as free as you possibly can. This is obviously confidential. And then from there, let's understand, like, hey, how can we start bridging the gap into giving you, little tips and tricks on the daily, starting today, that can start giving you hope, that can give you some light, that can give you some beauty and all the darkness and all the dark days and so forth. So we really sketch it out on a daily basis. And it just depends on what's going on. Is it from is the child situation? Is the marriage situation? Is it just that they don't have any time? What's going on? So I believe, again, the simple tools that could be, 5 minutes of meditation. That could be a 10-minute walk by yourself every single day. That could be a cup of coffee with your wife in the morning, just to start. That could be prayer, right? That could be prayer. That could be going to the gym 3 days a week. That could be, every Friday night for my wife and I. I'll give you an example of my wife and I. Every Friday night we have an in-home date. So we actually do a date night in our home. We get our boys to bed at a reasonable hour and we cook together or do something fun. And every week we try to do a different theme just to mix it up and keep the energy and the communication going after a busy, long week and so forth. So there's different things that we can do really quickly. Right. That doesn't have to be monumental. Like, oh my God, start waking up at 3 a.m. Or whatever it might be. I mean, I'm an early riser, so I'm a very early riser, but I recommend based on your schedule, we can base out a customized approach that can build in little things. So when you start to get triggered, you can revert back to those quickly and at your default trigger mode, if you will.
Okay. So the things that you've mentioned so far are the same things that are mostly mentioned for moms.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the taking 5 minutes, the taking a walk, the going, the exercise, the, finding that little time to pray or meditate or, those are all sort of they all are things that have been recommended for moms as well. And so I find that really interesting that, we always say that men and women are different, and we are, but a lot of the things, it's that self-care. And I think the self-care piece, I don't know if it's harder for men. It's not talked about as much for men. I think that
right.
I think that would be true. I don't know if it's harder for you all to do that self-care. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Like gratitude journaling, I do it personally, but guys don't talk about that stuff. Let's be honest about it. I'm talking about it. I want to get it out there and so forth. I think it's absolutely a frequency to connect to something bigger than yourself. Absolutely. And it's definitely been very helpful for me to get clarity on writing down what I'm grateful for today. And then what I'm grateful for tomorrow, which is coming for Harley and our family and so forth. So the ability to put out a frequency and some energy, which I really believe in, that's a big tenet of the business around spirituality. It needs to be talked about. It doesn't need to be man versus female. It needs to be universal, like you're saying. We're all connected, spiritually, energetic wise, and energy wise, right, to something bigger than ourselves. So the ability to talk about that freely and openly needs to happen, and not be like, oh, you're girly, man, because you talk about gratitude journaling. No, what's happening is bigger than ourselves.
Yeah. And I think that is a big part of it, as you mentioned earlier, and again just now, is that societal idea of, you can't have feelings as a guy, or if you have feelings, you can't share those feelings. Exactly. And you have to be tough, and everything, just is supposed to somehow wash right off of you. And that's been, perpetuated for hundreds of years. And it hurts my heart to know that there are guys out there that they have emotions and they never share them. I'm an emotional person, so that's such a foreign concept to me, to not share emotions.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it's something that, all the men in my life, my husband, my brother, my dad, my male friends, I don't see them cry. I don't see them, get a soft emotion. I can see I'll see them get angry, and I can see them, doing those quote unquote manly things. So I feel bad, because to me, I have to process things, and I have to talk about things to process them. But it doesn't seem like that's the way that many men do it. And I don't know if that's necessarily good or okay.
You're spot on, right? So I think, a few different things we can unpack there, Shelly, which is great. Absolutely. So one of the big tenets of God Fortitude is changing the narrative around old masculinity to new masculinity. Old masculinity is everything you just said, right? Societal pressures, the way we're raised, our biology, all that type of stuff. The new masculinity is helping fathers be emotional, ask for help, cry in therapy meetings, cry in their IEP meetings, whatever what it is, ask their spouse, like, hey, I need help. I'm overwhelmed this week. And hey, look, I'm still a work in progress myself. I'm still working all these aspects and principles of new masculinity and getting there. But it also wraps like, hey, when I do that, I feel better. I feel more connected to my spouse. She does too, vice versa, and so forth. So I think the openness and the ability to be vulnerable at the right time and so forth actually bonds us closer. She's like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, you're actually talking to me, which is great. You never want to talk to me about your emotions, and now I am at the right time, of course. And that things opens up, and it also kind of aligns to resiliency and so forth. It helps you build more resilient. I mean, if you're more connected to your spouse, if you're more connected at your home, and you're feeling like, hey, you're being supported by your community, by your schools, by your therapy centers, and so forth, you're going to be feel more resilient. You're going to be able to, to kind of adjust those sails and the difficulties and the storms and everything, and adjust it and make that right course for you and your family. So I think it's really tied in. I think that's a big piece of the business. And like, hey, let's teach men what the new generation of masculinity is for our generation now. So our children don't have to go seek love. They have it in the home today. There's no competition out there, right? It's all collaboration in love in the home. And there's no perfectionism. We don't have to be perfect fathers whatsoever or perfect mothers, but presence matters. I harp on that a lot. Being there
Yes.
physically, emotionally, psychologically, right? Being there, put your phone away, whatever it is. And I do this stupid stuff all the time on my phone, but like put it in the other room and be there with your children, even though when you're exhausted, you're like, oh my God, because you never have that day again. So I preach that to fathers. I
Right.
don't want to say preach, but like that's a big, big piece of it. I want to make sure that your community knows that and get that out in the open. And yeah, Shelly, I wasn't taught to be a man growing up, unfortunately. I was fortunate. I had a kind of position I did in my family. My family's emotional, so I have that part of it, which I was
Mhm.
lucky to have. But it wasn't shown how to be a man growing up, and so I struggled so long. And I'm just maybe figuring it out now. I'm 46, so maybe a little bit. So a long way to go.
Yeah.
But I mean, wouldn't it be great for men to be able to be open and not fear of ridicule and ramification, implications of talking about their feelings and crying and being sad and all that type of stuff? Because we all have feelings. We're all human beings. We all have hearts and souls, right? So why not all open
Right.
up and get better together?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm like I said, it just saddens me when I think about, that dads can't, won't, or don't, whichever it is. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
and maybe sometimes it's any one of those
Yeah.
three.
Yeah.
But I loved what you said so much. A couple things you said it a few minutes ago: the date night with your wife, but then also like the putting the phone away, and not just the phone. I was with a friend earlier today, and she said when she picked up her son, the dad was so engrossed in a video game and the television
Mm.
that when the son was leaving, all the dad said was, "Bye, son, love you." Like, didn't make eye contact,
No.
didn't look up from the game, and just to me sends a signal. And I don't necessarily know that the dad wanted to send the signal of you're not important, but I feel like that was the signal that was sent.
It, Look, you're spot on. So it's a great example. We have to model for our children, neurodivergent or not. And I'm
Mhm.
about to tell you about a quote that I heard from a mentor of mine. It's not mine, so I can't steal. It's not mine. But um, as a child, right, so many things are caught and not taught as a
Right.
child because they see how their parents interact or don't act, or they're present or they're not present by far. I still have a long way to go with my boys, right? But I'm here in the muck and mire all the time, right? I'm doing the best I can. Sometimes it's I'll fly on my face and so forth, but the ability to be able to model the good behavior most of the time, is so critical in that
Mhm.
presence and not worrying about, oh my God, we'd be the perfect father or mother, or once my son sees me do this. Well, you know what? That's just part of the deal. And if you can show them emotion and provide them a space to be able to talk and get their feelings off, out of their chest and so forth, then absolutely they're going to grow up a much more rich life and a much more rich household.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I do just want to throw this out there for dads. When I got married, I still didn't see my dad cry. And I have seen lots of dads when their daughter walks out, or, at the day that their son gets married, and they do shed a couple of tears. But my mom told me a story years later that on the way home from our reception, my dad was driving, and they pulled off to the side of the road, and my dad started to cry. And my mom had never really seen him do that. So it freaked her out.
Whoa.
And he was crying because he felt like he had lost me, and he had lost opportunity to get to know
Mm,
me.
mm,
And
wow.
it was like, she got married. She's still alive. She's still just living, she's just going to live down the road. Like, you still have. And so he did. After I was married,
Mhm.
then, we spent more time, and he did,
Wow.
um, spend, getting to know me better. But his love language when I was a kid was provision. And I
Mm,
think that's a lot of dad's love languages. And when I'm talking love languages, and I always get mixed up, which it's either Gary Chapman or Gary Smalley, and I apologize to whichever Gary is the right one. But they have this whole series about the 5 love languages. And my dad's was provision. So he literally would work 60, 80, 100 hours a week to provide for us. And my immature brain took that as, well, he just doesn't want to be around
mm,
us. He doesn't.
mm.
And we do have a lot of irrational thinking as a child, and I grew up battling anxiety, so that was part of mine as well.
Right.
But I want to encourage dads, whether your children is neurodivergent or not, it's never too late. Don't
Right.
intentionally wait, but if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, my child, it's too late for me to have that relationship. No, it's not. Um, and I think you would agree. Am I right, Kirby?
Absolutely. Well, great story. And thanks for kind of, walking us through part of your story, right, with your dad, which is great, Shelly. It's amazing. And thank you for being vulnerable, right, which is great. I think, yeah, absolutely. One thing I anchor on a lot is like, and I think about this a lot, and it's a little morbid, but I think about mortality. I think about my legacy a lot, and what
Mhm.
legacy do I want to carve out for my family? And I talk about with my fathers like that, my dads I work with on one-on-one basis. Like, what is that legacy you want to leave? And that's going to be different. That's going to be different for every single father, right? But for me, I want to be the
Right.
best father and husband I could be, and that's my number one objective. That's my number one imperative. Business wise, anything like that's number one. And then everything else falls into place from there. So I think, going back to what you kind of, Shelly, you said, right? You caught, like, your dad was like, hey, I'm a workaholic, I'm doing all this type of stuff because I want to provide for the family. However, it's time to change that a little bit, right? Because, fathers
Yeah.
and men put so much energy into providing and working, and then you retire, and then you have a few good years left, right? Let's enjoy all the years
Right.
together and integrate all the process, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why grandpas are often so wonderful, because I think a lot of dads realize, oh, my kid is out. I lost, my chance with that one is gone, but now
Mm,
I'm a grandpa,
that's
and
a
I
good,
can kind of do the things that I wished I would have done when my
interesting,
child was a child.
interesting perspective. No, I could see that. It's a great perspective. Yeah. And Shelly, question for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah. No.
So, and I've been talking too much. So from your perspective, when meeting with families you're working with for IEPs and so forth, what's kind of your baseline when working with dads? Are they involved, not involved? Are they open? Are they helpful? Are they in the meetings? Are they not in the meetings? Just curious. Yeah, yeah.
I would say in my 30 plus years in education, and then the last 8 years of, well, some of that's overlapping. I'm not that old. But I would, it's very minimal
Really?
that
Okay.
fathers attended IEP meetings. Many times as an educator, when the father would attend, it was usually because the mom had already attended and didn't feel heard or seen, or that
Mm,
somehow, like, it was almost like, how when so many of us were growing up, that mom is the disciplinarian, but if it's something real serious, you wait till dad comes in, or dad
yeah.
comes
Okay.
in and is that
I
extra
understand.
support.
Yep.
And I think that was more often the case when the
Mm,
dads would come to the IEP meetings, was like, um, I don't want to say intimidation, but like, you're not going to push me like you pushed the child's mother. And
Mm,
sometimes the moms and dads weren't married, and it
mm,
would still, have been sort of that situation. And I'm just thinking now, as a IEP coach, approximately, and like I said, interviewing families for my book, out of the 9 families, 2 dads were
mm,
there in most of the interviewing, but otherwise the other 7 dads weren't involved. Um, when the dads come, that there hasn't been some sort of problem prior.
mm,
Um, I've not had a single dad come. I've had single moms come, but I've not had a single
mm.
dad reach
Interesting.
out to me for coaching. And when the dads do come to that initial meeting, oftentimes they don't say much. And I don't know if it's because they haven't felt like they have all the information that they need before coming into the meeting,
Mhm.
or if they often just are there as, like I said, I don't want to say the muscle, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah. My dad was the same way. When I was just like, when it's like a little bit of trouble, my mom took care of it. When it was serious stuff, my dad was involved. I was like, okay, no, don't get dad involved. I was like, oh my God, here we
right,
go. Like, I was in trouble. I
right.
was really in trouble. Yeah. So yeah, 100%. I
Yeah.
totally relate to it.
Yeah. But that was a good question. I actually, as I was thinking, I'm like, gosh, no, I don't think I have any single fathers
Hmm.
that have contacted me. And like I said, I've been doing this for 8 years. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think that that's a sad state of what is going on. And as you mentioned, you're not sure you have many, if any, single fathers
Yeah.
in your groups.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know what that says, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of maybe interesting for both of us to research and see what.
Sure. Yeah. We'll come across them too at some point. We definitely will, and just figure out the inputs there and what triggers them and not. But yeah, I can only imagine the weight on them as well, right? And what they think about
Right.
and all the stresses and on them and how they deal with the daily grind. So yeah, it's got to be, I'm sure, very taxing as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna have to that's interesting. I'm gonna have to think about that. So I want to pull up your website again
Okay.
because I just want to talk really quickly
Sure.
about some of the resources that you
Absolutely.
have for dads. I don't think I actually went to that before. So you have something called the resource library. It's the 4th tab on your page here. So you want to talk about some of these things? I know you talked about the newsletter before and how your Facebook group you post daily, but
Mhm.
what are these other things?
Yeah. So we have four documents here that are no charge, that are directly related to my experience, starting from left to right. Early intervention. If you have a young kiddo that you think maybe need its early intervention, or is a potential opportunity for support. And for the families that aren't familiar with early intervention, it is a therapy-based service that every state has across the United States, that is typically funded or mostly funded by the state and the federal government. It
Mhm.
was absolutely paramount for Harley and ourselves. We got him at month 7, and they offer different types of services. So this is a guide just to help you guys go through it, get acclimated to the process, ask some questions and so forth. No charge again. The second to the left, is the father survival toolkit. This is things that I use on the daily, to get me through the goods, the bads, and the uglies, if you will. I highly recommend it
Okay.
for fathers and actually mothers dealing with neurodivergent children to download it, um, put some of these things in your repertoire to get you through the difficulties, and hope it helps. And I love your feedback on it. If it hits the mark, if it doesn't hit the mark, what do you guys you do differently? That's different. Um,
Mhm.
and the next is our IEP guide. And this is specifically just drawn from my experience. I've been through 13 IEPs with Harley already in first grade. And it's just,
Wow.
yeah, it's a checklist, really. It's a checklist of what to look
Oh,
for, what not to look for, what not to do, questions and so forth. And Shelly,
right.
you could probably add a lot of content to it as well. I'd love to collaborate with you on that down the road. And,
Yeah.
and then I have power morning blueprint. And this is not a brag piece whatsoever, but I get up early. My wife and I get up early, and I really believe in building momentum early in the
Mhm.
morning so I could take on anything that comes through the day, goods and bads and so forth. And I do a lot of things for self-care early in the morning to prepare myself for the goods, the bads, again, and so forth. So this is not to say, this is not the boast. It's not to say, oh my God, I'm so cool, I can do this, this, and this. This is just to give a framework to the fathers and the mothers out there looking for some opportunity for self-care. Maybe use some of these, techniques in the afternoon or tools in the afternoon or the evening and so forth. But just to kind of say, hey, you know what? There's an opportunity to help myself in different capacities. And myself, Shelly, I'm addicted to expanding my capacity and pushing myself to the limits in a good way. So it could be, again, the best version of myself for my family, if you will. And then we'll also have a special needs trust document coming pretty soon that is no charge, coming from a partnership with a law firm locally. And then,
fabulous.
Yeah, thank you. And this is all vetted resources and things, organization, nonprofits that are vetted, that I know personally, that have collaborations with, partnerships and so forth, special needs attorneys, as mentioned, therapy centers, you name it. It's in here, and we're keep on adding. We're going to add a couple more providers in here, and Shelly would love to get you in here as well.
Yeah, I'd be happy to be in there. So then you have specifically to Illinois, and then you've got a couple, 3 other states here: Minnesota, Indiana, and Iowa. And then you are an affiliate with the ARC of Illinois. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, actually, just a brand new partnership with the ARC. Been very fortunate to connect with the executive director over there, Sam Alloway. She's just absolutely wonderful, her and her team. And they do just tremendous work in the disability community for all people in this community, for advocacy, content, support, services, programs. And there's one in every state. So people from across the country, please look into it. There is a massive, wonderful organization. I'm a big believer and very fortunate and blessed to be affiliated with them, if you will. And they do absolutely great work and always have programs, webinars, free content, free services. You can give them a call and they can help out. So please do. Absolutely.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Is there anything else on the website that you want me to show before I leave the website completely?
That is the majority of the offerings today. The only other thing we have is an advocacy consultation where you book a hour call with us, and we just kind of talk you through. That's under Work With Me, advocacy consult. And that's just like, hey, Kirby, I need to get my head straight around. This is the father advisory sessions, if you will. This is the one-on-one coaching segment right here. Come here. We do a free discovery call for 30 minutes, making sure it's a good fit for that father and myself. We kind of talk through my framework and understand, hey, what's going on. So, first calls, no charge, no obligation, 30 minutes. Let's get to know each other. Then we offer 3 different packages of coaching opportunities. One is a two coaching package, which we call our, I believe our growth package, if you will. And this is kind of the framework of how I kind of build in the framing of the coaching and the advisory sessions, if you will. And it's absolutely my honor to work with dads one-on-one. I love it. I just love to see how they really make progress over time. And 3 different opportunities here: the Catalyst, the Foundation package, and it's just break it up by amount of sessions that you're looking to get into. But it's a lot of fun. We really get into it. And I love developing the rapport with the fathers around the country on different things they're dealing with, in the goods and the bad. So we'll love the opportunity to connect with anyone, or just want to talk about it. Hey, if it's a good fit, not a good fit, no hard feelings either way. But it's definitely my honor and one of my favorite things I'm doing right now, and a lot more opportunity for coaching and cohorts and things coming in next year as well.
Awesome. So I just want to remind all the listeners that it is www.gotfortitude.com, and that was GOT4, the number 4, TITUDE.com. And then also, if they wanted to reach out to you, it's hello@gotfortitude.com. And if they want to find you on any of the social, what are you on, LinkedIn and other social media, or is it just LinkedIn?
Pretty much almost every channel out there. So I got Fortitude. You can find me there. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, YouTube.
All the things, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like yourself, Kelly. Yeah. So we're out there. We'd love to connect. And happy to connect anytime.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for all that you were doing for dads. We just have a few minutes left, and I take this time now to make sure that we have covered everything that you had hoped to cover today. And if we haven't, now is that opportunity to bring something up that I missed or that you just thought of.
Oh, well, thank you. Hey, we're really excited about this, what we're doing here. We're creating a movement here for fathers around the world. Um, come as you are. It's a safe space. It's a no judgment zone. We're here for you. We have tools, we have content, we have resources, we have other fathers you can work with, and so forth. And hey, it's time to change the narrative around fathers, especially around
Yeah.
raising neurodivergent children. And we know, I know how difficult that is. So hey, this is an olive branch. Come find us. We're available, and we'd love to connect with any father locally, domestically, globally, and really excited about what we're doing. And we have a lot of great opportunities and offerings we're coming in, and services we're going to be offering in 2026 as we really push things to accelerate the business with the help of a lot of friends out there. So yeah, Shelly, this is great. Thank you for your time and getting the message out there. So thank you.
Yeah. No, that kind of leads me to one last question. Where does Got Fortitude go now?
Yeah. So got some pretty big objectives and imperatives for 2026. Just put together a board of some really incredible executives in the nonprofit disability space that were just very, very fortunate. They really leaning in on the mission, the movement. They want to help me out in different vectors, different angles. So we got some really tall tasks for next year, but really, really excited. And there's a lot of opportunity in a lot of different ways. I could talk to you about it for about 2 hours, but a lot more services, a lot more collaborations, a lot more opportunities for fathers, all kinds of stuff coming in 2026. So we're just getting started, and very excited to help out fathers and really make an impact.
That is so awesome. I am excited to watch you grow and to just see, I feel like there's so much growth opportunity because dads are an untapped area. And I really I hope and pray for all the dads out there of children who are neurodivergent that they reach out to you or someone and get that support.
Yep.
And I really do feel like there like I said, there's just I can just imagine the growth because they're just I think all just tiny little babies because they haven't had anybody doing for them what you're doing for them, and it's incredible work, and I'm honored that you came on today and shared about what you're doing. And guys, and I literally mean guys this time, I'm not using that as the plural of men and women, I'm like guys, reach out to Kirby, get that support for yourself. But as Kirby, you have said so beautifully a couple of times that when you have your cup full, you can be there more for your family and you can show up and you can be present. And that is so important. I hear too many stories, of people saying, gosh, I wish I'd had more time with my dad, or I wish my dad had spent more time with me, or, just and it's not just being in the room, it's actually acting. And so I encourage you, men, dads, to definitely become the butterfly that I know you can be. Go from that caterpillar of whatever it is that you're at now and become that amazing butterfly and take you and your family soaring to new heights, and just become a different version of yourself within probably a few months, a few years for sure. If you're working with Kirby, I can tell. I can just tell that it doesn't take, and that's I guess, I didn't really touch on that, but some of the things were like sessions, so I saw one for 8 sessions. So like in 2 months,
Mhm. Yeah.
you can have your horizons expanded and be better at being a father. We can all improve, no matter how good we are. We can always improve. So,
100%.
Kirby, again, thank you so much. And to all my audience, thank you. And remember, you know who you are, but not who you will be. And hashtag no limits, guys. Take care. Bye bye.
Love it. Thank you, Shelly.